This video is titled, Let Your Frustrations Be Known Without Blaming the Other Person. Blaming and attributing fault to another person, especially their character, this is called FAE bias, is going to make that person feel unsafe. So whether that person that you're thinking about, most particularly a romantic interest, it could be a family member or whatnot, but more than likely you are thinking about a romantic interest, and she is either not reciprocating or she is hanging out with other men, and you're feeling like that there's nothing that you can do, that you're feeling like it's hopeless, you're feeling like the world is against you, there's nothing you can do. And when you do express yourself, whether it's either a negative out of frustration or it's a positive trying to entice the goodness that she does exhibit, trying to favor that more so that she'll be more likely to do the good behavior, which is either hanging out with you more, spending less time with other random people. How are we supposed to navigate this very challenging situation where this romantic interest of yours is not communicating with you, doesn't seem to give you any attention? Maybe you've even read material or even thought to yourself that this person just isn't worth your time. Maybe you've even tried to block this person. Maybe you've had negative thoughts about this person and keep thinking that they're having sex with all these different men. Now, you're actually doing yourself a massive disservice by having all these negative thoughts, because these are becoming part of your hypnotic rhythm. What is your hypnotic rhythm? Your hypnotic rhythm is basically a set of patterns, and it's sort of like how you breathe. Your breathing in itself is a pattern, in, out, and your hypnotic rhythm basically is how you express yourself, what you think, what you consume. It's basically how you consume and whatever the opposite of consume is. And this tends to manifest in the way in which you are consuming things. If you are consuming negative things, you will probably manifest negative things, because your reticular activating system, which is in your brain, which is basically your nervous system, it's going to be on the lookout for all these different things that you're particularly focusing on, you're paying attention to. And if you keep on paying attention to all these negative things, you're going to keep on seeing all these negative things. And this doesn't mean that these negative things don't exist, and it doesn't mean that these negative things are necessarily worthy of being approved. But what it does mean is that if you are able to recognize there are some issues, that's fine. It's good that you're able to see them and perhaps dig deeper. But what is not healthy is focusing on them for too long, overextending your welcome on the negative. Because then if you're just blatantly focusing on all these things, you're going to be sitting in that state of being where you're overwhelmed and probably overthinking. I know I personally have overthought a lot of things, unfortunately, and overthinking, I'm pretty sure it just means there's just a spiral of thoughts going on in multiple branches of directions, and there just doesn't seem to be any end to where this goes. So how do you change things? How do you get the other person to finally reciprocate, to give you the admiration and the respect that you deserve and the love that you've been craving? Well, first of all, we cannot force a horse to drink. The horse is the one who gets to decide. There is literally nothing we can do to make that horse drink. We can entice the horse to drink. We can provide clear, crystal water for the horse to drink, and it's delicious perhaps, but we can't otherwise force the horse to drink. Some mistakes to definitely avoid are to blame the horse for not drinking, to accuse the horse of being selfish for not drinking, to make up negative stories about the horse for not drinking. Maybe the horse is drinking the neighbor's water, or the other farmer's water from down the yard. And yeah, you just want to avoid making these negative assumptions, essentially. And what is assumption? If you know anything about manifestation, the law of assumption is basically kind of related to the law of attraction, which is basically whatever you think about comes into fruition, kind of like a magnet. If you've ever read the book, which you probably haven't read the book, The Secret to Getting Absolutely Everything You Ever Want, I can't remember the author's name, and he basically says the reason things are attracted to you is because a thought is actually a tangible thing, because two objects basically kind of rotate around each other, I suppose. They're being gravitated, pulled towards each other. And interestingly enough, the power of thought somehow has the power to do this, and this is why a thought somehow is a tangible thing, and this is why the nervous system, for some reason, has a difficult time differentiating reality from imagination. And this is why, if you read any of Neville Goddard's books, this is like imagination creates reality. And this is so fascinating because in my personal experience, I've seen this play out. And, if you're experiencing something difficult, it just means that sometimes there are dips, which means there are going to be definitely very highs. And sometimes, just sometimes, the things that you want may sometimes appear in a bit of a fruity, vague way. And a vague way probably means you need to be much, much more crystal clear specific on whatever it is you're trying to manifest. That is if you're trying to manifest at all, especially by means of some type of visualization. Now, what we should do is actually focus our attention, like literally focus our attention away from the negative things. Get off TikTok, get off Facebook, all that rubbish that people post about relationships, all those differing opinions and pieces of advice. It all literally F's with your hypnotic rhythm. We need to focus on constructive things. We need to focus on empathy and understanding and self-respect. And self-respect does not mean putting your foot down. It does not mean raising your voice and setting boundaries in order to enforce the other person to adhere to them. Setting boundaries is more a protection for yourself, so that if someone else, the other party, the romantic interest, wants to cross these boundaries, they're going to do so through a bit of a filter. And it's not going to be a confrontational filter. It's going to be a welcoming filter. But it's kind of like, if you want the car to drive, you need the keys, right? Now, I've been reading so much material on relationships, right? Father-daughter wounds, the Let Them theory. I just finished reading the Let Them theory book, and the Let Them theory book, I really liked it. I really especially liked chapter 12, 13, and 14. They were really good chapters. But the thing about some of these books as well, even though I love them to death, is that sometimes they kind of assume, well, if the other person isn't going to reciprocate, then this relationship just isn't for me. Is it really that clear, cut, and dry? I mean, for the average standard person, maybe. If you're suffering that much, maybe you need to remove yourself from the relationship entirely. Remove your attention away from it. And this is probably not a bad idea in order to recover, to heal, to grow yourself, because this is really the only thing that you really can do. I would say this doesn't mean that you're abandoning the relationship. This doesn't mean that you're giving up, because if you give up, which sometimes I felt like doing myself so many times, giving up is, what's that going to do? It doesn't really lead you where you want it to go. And so we're going to have to focus our attention on, like I was trying to say, empathy and understanding and being there for the other person, irrespective of how harsh and cruel they treat you. Now, when I say harsh and cruel, I don't mean actual violence. If there's any violence or verbal abuse or majorly strong error, you do need to remove yourself from their presence. One thing we also need to be very mindful of is, are we enabling any type of negative patterns? For example, if someone's constantly going to the hospital and you're always picking them up because they harm themselves or if they've done something ridiculous, are you picking that person up all the time? And that is actually enabling that behavior. So just be very mindful of behavior like that. Some people will tell me, well, a healthy woman wouldn't do this, or a healthy relationship requires mutual respect, etc. But I am under the impression that it does not take two to tango. It really only takes one to really take the initiative. And if you simply believe that you can, especially during the hardest moments, especially during the moments where it's the most hardest, then you are more likely to accomplish what you desire, what you dream about. And sometimes this can take a very long time to play out. It can go against all odds. Now, I guess back to the original title of the video, right? I said, let your frustrations be made known, but without blaming or assigning fault to the other person. And this is because even in a family setting, right? Even in a romantic interest setting, relationship setting, you want to not suppress your emotions. You want to not suppress the emotions of the other person. You don't want to be tiptoeing around the person. You want to let the other person know where you kind of stand, what you think, because you're not really doing the other person a favor if you're kind of not telling them the truth. You're just kissing their feet and their ass and you're putting them on a pedestal, and they need to be tiptoed around all day because they wouldn't be able to handle the truth. If you believe your romantic interest or partner to be that level of immature, then so that they shall be, because that's how you believe them to be. And I know this is a very tricky one to kind of wrap your head around, but just be very careful. I would say treat your partner as if they are human. They are human, just like you.